Your mind doesn't turn off at night because you spent the whole day teaching it not to turn off. Just like that. Every time you picked up your cell phone to check your notification, every time you jumped from one task to another without finishing any of them, every time you tried to do 3 things at the same time, you reinforced a pattern. And now, when you lie in bed and hope that this pattern will magically reverse itself, you become frustrated. But the brain doesn't work like that. It doesn't have an on and off button. He learns from what you practice. And you have been practicing constant activation. The Japanese concept of Mushin goes directly against this. Mushin means being present without mental interference, without that voice inside your head commenting on everything that happens. The samurai trained this because during a fight, thinking too much meant death. The blade comes, you react. There's no time for analysis. There's no room for doubt. The mind needs to be empty of noise, but full of presence. It's a paradox only on the surface. In practice, it makes perfect sense. A mind free from internal chatter is a mind available for real action. Now apply this to your sleep problem. When you lie down, your mind remains in samurai mode facing imaginary enemies. But enemies are thoughts, worries about tomorrow, regrets about yesterday, analysis about things you can't change. And you stay there, fighting. Cutting off a thought here, defending from another there. Exhausted, but without leaving the place. Mushin teaches the opposite. Don't fight, watch. When a thought appears, you don't need to engage it, you don't need to resolve it. Just notice that it is there and let it go. Like a cloud in the sky. You see it, but you don't try to hold it back. Here lies the first major obstacle. Your ego hates this idea, because the ego feeds on thought. It is made of thought. So when you start practicing not identifying with every thought that comes your way, the ego goes into panic mode. He will try to convince you that that specific thought is too important to ignore, that you need to resolve this now, that if you don't think about it, something terrible will happen. It's all a lie. It's just the ego fighting for its own survival. Because a silent ego is a weakened ego. Mushin does not kill the ego. It just shows that you are bigger than him. That there is an observant consciousness that does not depend on mental chatter to exist. And when you tap into that awareness, even for seconds, something fundamental changes. You notice that thoughts come and go by themselves, that you don't control them as much as you think, that they are more like mental climate than conscious choices. And if they are like weather, you don't fight with them. Just wait for it to pass. The frequency of 432 hertz enters this equation in an almost surgical way. Sound is vibration. Vibration affects matter. Your body is matter. Therefore, sound affects your body. It's not mysticism, it's basic physics. Now, not every frequency affects the same way. 440 hertz, which is the standard for modern music, has a higher pitched, more tense quality. 432 hertz has a more rounded, more organic quality. Some studies suggest that it resonates best with water in the human body. And considering you're 60% water, that's no small detail. When you expose your brain to sounds at 432 hertz, your brain waves begin to synchronize with that frequency. It's a process called entrainment. Your brain literally aligns itself with the external rhythm. And 432 hertz tends to push brain waves into slower states, for alpha and theta, states where the conscious mind loosens control a little, where the body understands that it is safe enough to relax, where thoughts lose that neurotic urgency that keeps you awake. Combining Mushin with 400 hertz is like attacking the problem from 2 angles. Mushin works on the mental relationship with thoughts. 430 hertz works on the physiological state of the brain. One is software, the other is hardware. And when the two align, you create ideal conditions for sleep to happen. Not because you forced it, because you removed the obstacles. Let's talk about what really happens when you try to sleep. You lie down, want to sleep, then start monitoring whether you are sleeping. And then he lost. Because tracking sleep is the opposite of sleeping. It's like trying to relax while someone shouts in your ear, "Relax." Impossible. The act of checking if it is working cancels the operation. Mushin teaches you to stop monitoring, stop judging. Just lying down, breathing, existing without an agenda. And in this non-doing, sleep finally has space to arrive. The problem is that we were trained to always do it, always produce, always reach. So even sleep becomes a task. It becomes a goal. I need 8 hours of sleep. I need to sleep soundly. I need to wake up rested. And every I need adds pressure, adds tension, drive away sleep. Because sleep is not an achievement, it's surrender. And you only surrender when you trust. Trust that it's okay to let go of control. That the world, it won't fall apart if you stop watching it for a few hours. 432 hertz facilitates this trust in a non-verbal way. The constant harmonic sound creates a kind of acoustic blanket. An environment where the nervous system finally receives the message, it's safe here. Because sounds at harmonic frequencies imitate patterns in nature. resting heart rate, sea waves, wind in the trees, things our ancestral brain recognizes as safety signals, absence of predators, permission to rest. There is a crucial difference between relaxation and collapse. Collapse is when you're so exhausted that you pass out. Relaxation is when you consciously release tension that you have been holding on to. Most people only know about collapse. He works until he can't take it anymore, then passes out on the bed. But this is not quality rest. It's just the body shutting down because it no longer has energy. Mushin teaches conscious relaxation. You notice where you're holding tension, in your jaw, in your shoulders, in your forehead, and let go, not with effort, carefully. Attention relaxes, effort contracts. Here comes one of the most profound teachings of Zen, the concept of effortless effort. It seems contradictory, but it isn't. It means doing what is necessary without adding unnecessary tension. How to breathe. You breathe all the time, but you don't tense up doing it. It happens. Mushin applied to sleep would be that. You create the conditions. Lie down, darken the room, put on sounds at 432 Hz, and then let go. It doesn't keep checking if it's working. Trust the process. The modern mind is terrified of trusting, because trust means giving up control, and giving up control feels dangerous. But here's the truth no one wants to hear. You never had control. You don't control when you die. You don't control whether you're going to get sick. You don't control what other people think of you. It doesn't control 99% of the universe. The only thing you kind of control is where you direct your attention, and even that is debatable. So all this attachment to control is illusory from the beginning. It's just the ego thinking it's more important than it is. Mushin is the practice of letting go of that inflated ego, not with violence, with honest observation. You notice how many thoughts appear without you calling them, how many emotions arise without permission, how much of what happens in your mind has nothing to do with conscious choice. It's automatic. And when you really see this, not intellectually but experientially, something relaxes, because you stop feeling responsible for controlling the uncontrollable. You take responsibility only for what is truly in your control, your response to what happens. At night, when thoughts come, you did not create them intentionally. They emerged. Products of neural processing, memories being consolidated, anxieties manifesting. You are not to blame for them appearing, but you are responsible for how you react. Whether you take the bait and start developing stories around them, or whether you just observe and let it pass. That choice, you have it, and it's the only one that matters. 400 Hz works at a level where conscious choice cannot reach. It directly affects the autonomic nervous system, the part that controls heartbeat, breathing, digestion, the part that decides whether you're in fight or flight mode or rest and recovery mode. You can't just tell the nervous system to relax. He does not obey verbal commands, but he responds to stimuli, and sound frequencies are powerful stimuli. When the sound environment is harmonious, constant, without scares, the nervous system interprets it as security, and safely it allows for relaxation. The whole question comes down to this. Are you creating conditions for sleep or creating obstacles? When you lie down with your mind full of mental caffeine, worries, plans, analyzes, you are creating obstacles. When you lie down after spending the day practicing mindfulness, even for a few minutes, you are creating conditions. Mushin is not something you do only at night. It's an attitude you cultivate throughout the day. And the more you practice during the day, the more natural it looks at night. Practice like this. During the day, several times, stop what you're doing, just for 10 seconds. Sit up straight, close your eyes, take 3 deep breaths. Observe thoughts without getting involved, just that. 10 seconds, several times a day. This begins to break the pattern of constant activation. It starts teaching the brain that there is another way, a mode of presence without agitation. And when you lie down at night, this mode becomes more accessible, because you've already activated it several times during the day. With 432 Hz sound, practicing is even easier. You can even use it during the day, while you work, at a very low volume, just to create a more harmonious acoustic environment. Many people report that they can focus better, with less anxiety, when they have these sounds in the background. And when night arrives, the brain has already associated that frequency with a state of calm. So the yes, when you put it on, there's a conditioned response. The body remembers, oh, that sound means I can relax. There's a Zen technique called zazen, sitting meditation. There is no visualization, there is no mantra, just sit and watch. When practitioners do this long enough, something curious happens. They begin to realize that there is a space between stimulus and response. Someone insults you, stimulus. You get angry, response. But between these two events, there is a tiny space. And in that space lives freedom, because then you can choose. Do not react automatically, but respond consciously. The same goes for thoughts at night. Thought arises, stimulus. You become emotionally involved, automatic response. But with Mushin practice, you begin to perceive space. Thought arises, and there's half a second before you automatically take the bait. In that half second, you can choose. A thought. Interesting. But I won't elaborate on that now. And go back to breathing. Go back to the sound. Go back to the present. This is the training. It's not about never having thoughts. It's about changing the relationship with them. About not being a slave to every mental impulse. And the more you practice during the day, the stronger this skill becomes, until it becomes almost automatic. Thought arises, you notice it, you don't engage it, you return to the present. It appears, notices, does not engage, returns. And little by little, thoughts lose their strength, because you stopped feeding them attention. And without attention, they wither. 432 Hz works as an anchor in this process. It's easier to come back to the present when you have something concrete to focus on. And sound is perfect because it's constant but not intrusive. You can put attention on it or leave it in the background. It holds the acoustic space without demanding it. And in that undemanding quality, there is something deeply relaxing. Because all of life is a requirement. Do it. Be that. Goal achievement. Prove value. And the 432 Hz sound doesn't want anything from you. It just exists. And you can just exist together. Japanese culture deeply understands the value of not doing. They have tea ceremonies that last for hours and apparently produce nothing but tea. But the point is not the tea. It's the ritual. It's being present. It's the ma, the empty space between things, the silence between the notes, the interval between breaths. In these empty spaces, there is something essential, something that the busy mind cannot access, but that the mind in Mushin recognizes immediately. Your sleep needs help, need empty space between thoughts. But you fill every millisecond with something: notification, music, podcast, thought, no pause, no silence. And then he complains that he can't sleep. But how are you going to sleep if you never stop? Sleep is the ultimate ma. It is the empty space where the body performs maintenance. But you resist it because you have been trained to produce, not to pause. Mushin and 400 Hz teach you to pause, one mentally, the other physically. And when you practice pausing during the day, pausing at night becomes natural. It becomes an extension of something you already know, not a fight against your own nature. Because its nature is not 24/7 activation. This is social conditioning. Its real nature is cyclical: activity and rest, doing and not doing, yang and yin. And when you honor that cycle instead of fighting it, everything gets better. Not just sleep, all. There's a famous Zen monk who said, "Before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water." The point is that enlightenment doesn't make you special. It doesn't give you superpowers. It just changes how you do things, with full presence instead of divided mind. And that total presence is Mushin. Do what you're doing without the mind creating drama on top. When you're trying to sleep, just try to sleep. Don't think about trying to sleep. Don't analyze whether it's working. Just lie down, breathe, listen to the sound. It exists. And if thoughts come, okay, they come. You notice, does not develop. Come back. Simple. Not easy, but simple. And the difference between simple and easy is important. Simple means non-complicated. Easy means effortless. Mushin is simple. It may not be easy at first because you have decades of counter-conditioning, but it's simple. There is no secret step. There's no trick, just presence. Just let go. 432 Hz makes the process less difficult because it does some of the work for you. You don't need to force your brain to slow down. Sound does this naturally through entrainment. You just need to stay out of the way. You just need to allow it. And allowing is the essence of Mushin. Allow things to be as they are. Allow thoughts to arise and pass. Allow the body to relax. Allow sleep to come when it comes, without forcing, without controlling, just allowing. The resistance you feel when you try this approach is normal, because you are going against years of programming. You were taught that you need to make it happen, that needs to be controlled, that you need to make an effort. Now someone is telling you to let it all out. Of course there is resistance. The ego is in a panic, but watch what happens when you test, even if it's just for one night. Go to bed without expectation. Turn on the sound. Breathe. Observe thoughts without getting involved and see what happens. Nothing might happen the first time, or the second. Your brain needs time to learn the new pattern. But if you consistently practice, Mushin during the day, 400 Hz at night, conscious breathing, letting go instead of forcing, something will change. Gradually, not like a switch that turns on and off, like dawn. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, but inexorably. And one day you realize that it's been a while since you've had trouble sleeping. Not because it solved the problem, because he stopped creating it. This is the ultimate irony. Insomnia, in most cases, is not the real problem. It's a symptom of a mind that doesn't know how to stop. from a nervous system on chronic alert, of a life without ma, without pauses, without empty spaces. Mushin and 432 Hertz do not cure insomnia. They heal the unhealthy relationship with one's own mind. They restore the balance between doing and being, between activity and rest, between sound and silence. And when this balance is restored, sleep returns naturally, not as something conquered, but as something rediscovered. How to return home after being lost for a long time. The house has always been there, you who forgot the way. Mushin is the map. 422 Hertz is the soundtrack. And the journey back begins the moment you stop fighting and start allowing. Stop forcing and start trusting. Stop thinking too much and start just being. It's not magic. It's not a miracle. It's just remembering what your body has always known. That rest is not a luxury, it's necessity. That thoughts are not commands, they're just neural noise. That you're bigger than your mind, more spacious, quieter. And in this space, in the silence, there is finally a place for sleep to find you. Smooth as it should always be. Natural as it always was. Before you forget. Before complicating things. Before thinking too much. Just sleep, just rest, just peace. Let's delve a little deeper into what it really means to not overthink. Because this expression is thrown around as if it were obvious, but in practice, most people don't understand it. Not thinking too much doesn't mean being stupid. It doesn't mean ignoring real problems. It means not creating problems where they don't exist. It means not taking a simple situation and turning it into a complex drama through layers and layers of interpretation. Your mind loves to do this. Did someone not respond to your message? The mind creates 10 scenarios about why. Maybe he's angry. Maybe I don't like you anymore. Maybe he's avoiding you. And then you ruminate about it, spending emotional energy on something that can have a much simpler explanation. The person was busy and forgot to respond. But the mind does not accept simplicity. She wants drama. You want complexity. Because then she has something to work with. You have something to occupy yourself with. Mushin nips this in the bud. When you practice observing thoughts without getting involved, you begin to notice this pattern. The mind is creating drama again. And instead of buying the story, you just notice that that's what's happening. A story, not necessarily the truth, just one of the infinite possible interpretations. And you don't have to believe every interpretation your mind offers. You can just let it go. This is liberating in a way that is difficult to express in words, because suddenly you realize that most of your suffering is self-inflicted. Not by the events themselves, but by the story you tell about the events. And you have a choice about which story to tell. Or if you're going to tell a story, sometimes you don't need a story. Sometimes things are just what they are. No deep meaning. No catastrophic implications. Just neutral events happening. 432 Hertz helps in this process of detachment from narratives because it literally slows down brain activity. The faster the brain is working, the easier it is to create elaborate stories. More connections are made, more associations emerge. But when the brain slows down to alpha and theta waves, these connections slow down, less automatic. And at this slower pace, it becomes easier to realize, oh, this is just a thought. I don't need to develop this. Another important aspect is to understand that Mushin is not suppression. A lot of people get confused. You think it's about pushing thoughts under the rug. Pretend they don't exist. But this is the opposite of Mushin. Suppression creates pressure. What you repress comes back with more force. Mushin is about recognition without involvement. You see the thought clearly, recognize that it is there. But he doesn't engage with him. It's like you're at a party. Someone invites you to a conversation that you know is going to be boring. You can politely decline. Thanks for the invitation, but I'll pass by. SEM drama, no elaborate explanation. Just no thanks, and move on. It's the same thing with thoughts. A thought arrives, invites you into a spiral of worry. You can decline. Thanks for showing up, but I'm not going to engage with that right now. And go back to breathing. Return to 402 Hertz sound, go back to the present. Thought is not offended. It just passes. Because thoughts have no ego. Only the mind creating thoughts has an ego. Thoughts themselves are neutral. They come and go, like waves. Now, something that very few people talk about, sleep. The quality of your day determines the quality of your night. If you spend the whole day in chronic stress, in survival mode, in hyperactivation, you can't expect that suddenly, at 10 o'clock at night, everything will calm down. The body doesn't work like that. He needs transition, needs a deceleration ramp. And most people don't give him that. Go from 100 to 0 and hope it works. So part of the Mushin practice needs to happen during the day. There need to be moments, however short, where you slow down, where you get out of doing mode and into being mode. It could be 2 minutes of looking out the window and doing nothing. It could be 5 minutes of sitting in silence. It could be a walk without headphones, without a podcast, without anything. Just walking, feeling your feet touching the floor, feeling the air on your skin. Gift. These micro moments of presence throughout the day are like rehearsals for bedtime. You're training your brain to know what it is like to be in Mushin. And the more you practice during the day, the more familiar it becomes. It becomes a well-known reference. So at night, when you lie down and try to access this state, it's not completely strange. It's something you've visited several times throughout the day. And that makes all the difference. 432 Hertz can be part of these moments too. You don't only need to use it at night. There may be a few minutes during the day where you put on your headphones, turn on 432 Hertz, close your eyes, and just breathe. Just that. 3-5 minutes. But done with intention, with full presence. Not as a task that you're doing while thinking about other things, but as a sacred moment, a moment of your own, where nothing else matters other than being there, breathing, listening, being. Let's talk now about something more technical but important. The difference between brain waves. When you're engaged in intense mental activity, working, solving problems, talking, your brain is predominantly in beta waves. Beta is necessary for cognitive function. But chronic beta is guaranteed exhaustion. It's the restless brain. Always on, always processing, always on alert. Alpha is the next state. Still conscious, but relaxed. It's where you are when you meditate, when you do something effortlessly creative, when you are in flow. Alpha is the bridge between the conscious and the subconscious. It's a nice state. Present but relaxed. Alert but without tension. Theta is even deeper. That's where you are when you dream. When you are in deep meditation, it is a state of high creativity, of insight, emotional processing. Theta is restorative. That's where the magic happens. But you can't force theta. You need to allow the brain to go down there naturally. 432 Hertz makes this descent easier. The frequency pulls the brainwaves down from beta to alpha, from alpha to theta, and eventually into delta, which is deep sleep. But it only works if you don't resist. If you keep monitoring, am I already in alpha? Am I already relaxing? You stay in beta, because monitoring is beta activity. This is why Mushin is so crucial. Mushin is the practice of not monitoring, of not controlling, of just being. And in that being, the brain naturally finds the state it needs. You don't need to direct this process. In fact, the less you drive, the better it works, because driving is beta, allow is alpha and theta. There's another relevant Japanese concept here, wabi-sabi. It's about finding beauty in imperfection, in impermanence, in incompleteness. Apply this to sleep. Your night doesn't have to be perfect. You don't need to sleep exactly 8 hours. You don't need to sleep deeply 100% of the time. Sometimes you will wake up in the middle of the night. Oh, all good. This is human. This is natural. The problem is not waking up. It's the drama you create around waking up. Damn, I woke up again. Now I won't be able to go back to sleep. Tomorrow is going to be horrible. Why does this always happen to me? This internal monologue is what keeps you awake. Not the fact that I woke up, but the drama around it. Wabi-sabi teaches you to accept. I woke up. Okay, I'm going to breathe here for a bit, listen to the 432 Hertz sound and see what happens. No drama, no judgment, just acceptance. And do you know what happens when you stop dramatizing? You often go back to sleep quickly because it didn't create all that emotional and mental burden that previously kept you awake. You just accepted the moment as it was, and the next moment he was asleep again. But you'll never find out if you don't test, if not try a different approach. Let's talk about breathing, because it is a powerful and underutilized tool. Most people breathe shallowly all day. Only the upper part of the chest moves, and shallow breathing signals to the body that there is danger, that you need to be ready to run or fight. Deep breathing, on the other hand, signals safety, relaxation. The parasympathetic nervous system activates, digestion improves, the heart rate decreases, the mind calms down. So part of the nighttime practice is breathing properly. It's not complicated. Lie down, place a hand on your belly. Take a deep breath through your nose, feeling your belly rise. Not the chest, the belly. Then exhale slowly through your mouth, feeling your belly drop. He does this sometimes consciously. And then let your breathing find its own rhythm. You don't need to control every breath, only the first ones to establish the standard. Then the body takes over. With 432 Hertz sound playing, breathing becomes even easier to focus on. Because you have two anchor points, external sound and internal breathing. And when the mind wanders, because it will wander, you have something to come back to. Sound, breathing, sound, breathing. Simple, effective. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. Now, realistic expectations. You won't master Mushin in one night? You're not going to start using 432 erts and immediately have the best sleep of your life. It might happen, but it's not guaranteed. Because you have years of conditioning to undo, years of established neural patterns. This takes time, patience, consistency. But every night you practice, even if it seems like nothing is happening, you are reinforcing new patterns. It's creating new neural pathways. And eventually these paths become stronger than the old ones, and then the change comes. Not as a dramatic event, as a gradual transition. One day you realize that you haven't had serious problems sleeping for weeks. And he doesn't even remember exactly when it changed. It just changed. There's something important about giving up control. Most people think that control is power, but control is prison. Mainly control over things that cannot be controlled. And sleep is one of those things. You don't control when you sleep. You create conditions and allow it. It's a dance, not a dictatorship. And when you understand that, when you really absorb that, you relax, because you stop fighting an unwinnable battle. Mushin teaches you this through direct experience, not through abstract philosophy, but through concrete practice. You sit, breathe, observe thoughts, and he realizes that the more he tries to control his mind, the more chaotic it becomes. But when you let go, when you just observe without interfering, she naturally calms down, like muddy water. If you keep stirring, the water remains cloudy. But if you stop stirring and just wait, the dirt settles on its own. The water clears. Without you doing anything, just because it doesn't interfere with the natural process. 432 hertz works similar. It doesn't force your brain to do anything. It only offers a harmonic frequency. And your brain, being the adaptable organ that it is, tends to synchronize. Not because it was forced, because it is efficient to do so. Because harmony is less work than chaos. And the brain, like any biological system, seeks efficiency. So it will naturally align with that harmonic sound. If you let me, if you don't get in the way with anxious thoughts about whether it's working or not, I'm going to give you concrete practice for tonight. It doesn't need anything special. Go to bed at the time you would normally go to bed. Before going to bed, play any sound tuned to 432 hertz, low volume, just in the background. Lay down, take 3 deep breaths. Belly goes up, belly goes down. After that, forget about breathing. Let her do what she wants. Now focus on the sound, not in a tense way, in a gentle way, as if you were listening to music you like, only without lyrics, just frequency. As you listen, thoughts will appear. When you realize that you have lost yourself in a thought, that you're developing some mental story, gently return to the sound. No frustration, no damn again, just thought, and back. And do this as many times as you need. It could be 10 times, it could be 100. It doesn't matter. Every time you come back, it's a repetition. It's training. It's not failure. And let sleep come whenever it wants. Don't wait for him. Don't keep checking, am I sleepy yet? Just stay there, listening to the sound, returning to the present when your mind wanders. And at some point, you won't even realize it, but you'll be asleep. Because sleep does not announce arrival. He just arrives. When you're not watching the door. This practice is applied Mushin. It is 432 hertz applied. That's all we're talking about, but in a concrete way. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. It doesn't even seem practical. It just looks like you're going to sleep, naturally, effortless, as it should have always been. As it is for most animals. They don't get anxious about sleeping. When they are tired, they sleep. Simple. And you can return to that simplicity. But you need to unlearn the complexity that you were taught. And unlearning takes time. It takes patience. It takes practice.